As I near 2 decades of life here on this earth, there are still a multitude of uncertainties I have regarding myself, along with miscellaneous purposes and meanings. I hold very few things certain this short into what I hope is a very long experience in life. However, one stance I hold for sure about myself is that the two overarching influences that have impacted and formed my current identity the most are music and video games. Music, being one of the most universal and unequivocal mediums of art that have dominated the space of representing expression for millennia, from as grand as an organ piece that not only has been going on for the last 20 years, but plans to continue for the next 600 to... And video games, the relatively new outlet that has quickly become an undeniable force with enough multifaceted stimuli to impact every cherished aspect of human experience, from nostalgia to innovation and beyond. Combine the two and you tap into what I believe is the most undervalued subsets of both mediums, video game music. Now, you can grab perspective of the impact of video game music from a variety of places. Of course, the obvious one would be how it is effective within its purpose, whether it's pieces composed to build a world, a motif to develop an identity for a series, or something as small as a sound effect or a jingle to optimize gameplay. Those are all very justifiable reasons in themselves to discuss in a lengthy and articulate video. However, what fascinates me the most about video game music is its power beyond the screen, beyond its initial purpose. And while that power may not be limited to video game music when reviewing the numerous kinds of art forms available, this is a video game channel, so this topic in particular hits extremely close to home. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Video game music has been a very meaningful thing in my life. I'm an only child, and I was raised in a very protective household. I often avoided being outside playing with the kids in the neighborhood on the street, instead opting for whatever entertainment that was available within my own home. When I was 6, I received a red Nintendo DS Lite and a Cars game, and ever since then I've grown through my childhood with video games as a defining factor. Likely related to that path choice, I was pretty short for a guy, and sports gradually became something much out of the picture. Knowing this, my parents put me into music. I joined the school band class, learned how to play a couple instruments, and participated in the city's marching band for a bit. By the time most of those programs were over, I was just as fond of music as I was for video games. So throughout, it had become only natural that the music within video games would become a niche that would grab a stranglehold on my interest. I would spend hours at home trying to mimic a song I heard from whatever game I was playing on my saxophone, eager to try and show off and play it in class the next day. A regular part of my musical warm-ups would be reciting riffs from Mystic Cave Zone and Lost Woods, even to the point where I began influencing the music that the class would play, going from 18th century compositions to Hylian medleys. Sharing my love of video game music with my school environment became an oasis for me in a childhood that was rather polarizing otherwise, and it was an invaluable mainstay in my scholarly routine. Until it wasn't. With everything that has occurred in the world in the last year and some change, things have shifted for millions of people, and for myself, one of those things that I lost was my musical enjoyment. Of course, being from home, I couldn't be in that environment I valued so much in music class, and the troubles of an ongoing crisis distracted me from the majority of my hobbies and extracurriculars for a significant stretch. And reflecting on that recent turmoil revealed arguably the most palpable takeaways you can receive from video game music. Ones you can only discover removed from the time you first became enthralled. Ones you can only discover after it's gone. I'm in my junior year of high school now. I'm in a pressure cooker year, I've been told on quite a few instances. And because of that, aside from starting this channel, I've relinquished an overwhelming portion of my time to preparing for college. And within that, studying for the plethora of exams I have to take to stay in the college process. When studying, it's become of second nature to me to listen to music. And of course, the genre of choice is video game music. It was through this that I stumbled upon the revelation that this was a topic I wanted to wholeheartedly discuss, because in these hundreds of YouTube compilations of music, ranging from relaxing SNES music to upbeat music for studying, the comments are filled to the brim of ordinary people just like myself, telling their stories. All are tied to their experiences with video games. People who have lost loved ones, have gone through great struggles in recent times, people who have lost themselves in their current ambitions, and etc. One of the best examples of this is a video I've seen mentioned on a few other channels when discussing the same topic. This video, a vaguely mysterious video from a little over 7 years ago with a thumbnail only recognizable to those familiar and a Japanese title that reveals the video's contents, simply being a 1-hour extended rendition of Sticker Brush Symphony from 1995's Donkey Kong Country 2. While I can talk about the piece of music itself, as the DKC series holds some of the most emotional and nostalgia-wrenching tracks in gaming history, what stands out is the well over 10,000 comments that have been left under it. The video, dubbed The Checkpoint for those who are aware of what its comment section has become, is riddled with some of the most personal and transparent passages left by users. From as small as someone just wishing well on whoever comes across their message as they entered the new year, to as heavy as their traumatizing encounters with tragic death, illness, and pain. It is truly one of the most touching, sympathetic, and thought-provoking online interactions I've seen in my time on the internet, and it was all brought together by a song featured on a prominent Nintendo title from a little over a quarter-century ago. Instances such as the Checkpoint video also help me point out another defining aspect to why I garner an everlasting appreciation for video game music, an aspect that is immensely important to gaming as an art form. Yes, a large chunk of people who leave comments on the numerous compilation videos I referenced earlier are from people who experienced those games growing up, in the game's original lifespan and time. Like a kid today playing Smash Ultimate, Breath of the Wild, or any other new title. But another group was younger individuals, folks around my age, who weren't around to hold an experience like a snow day in 1998 where they can stay home and play the then recently released Ocarina of Time for the day off, yet could still have a similar emotional response to hearing the game's opening theme because of its context we hold on such pieces. It is a door that allows gamers to discover and enjoy art from a time not natural to them. And yes, this is something that occurs through all instances of art. The best example I can compare it to is growing fond of the music that your parents played in the house when you were a child. But video game music offers a unique fold in that occurrence that allows not only someone like myself to become educated on a period in that medium unfamiliar to me naturally, but to experience that era with nearly all of your senses in a way that can only be achieved through the interactive characteristic of video games. My genuine appreciation for video games from the 90s and the early 2000s was birthed almost entirely from my infatuation for the video game soundtracks of that time, and any aspect of any art medium that allows the next generation to voluntarily acknowledge works from a time removed is invaluable to space as a whole. Because when having a conversation about art, or effort, or as existential as our purpose on this planet, one of the echoing sentiments is that we want our work to be remembered, a sentiment that is present in the minds of video game developers and creators, not unlike every other artist. Understanding that notion brings me to my last point I hold on video game music. When I opened this video, I jumped into detail on how video game music is a harmonic collaboration between video games and music, yet I rarely see it get the same level of praise or acknowledgement as the separate art forms do on their own. Whether it is credited more on the game side, it is often seen as an afterthought, or something to only consider as a cog in the full piece of art that is the game it is tied to. And when it's credited more on the music side, I never see it receive the same pomp and circumstance as an album from a current artist or even a movie soundtrack does. Video game music is underrated. and this is a topic going much more in depth in itself in this video by Macros a few months back. That being said, in parallel to this video, I want to take this last end of my video on the subject to point out some of the video game soundtracks that have left the largest impressions on myself in the short time I've been able to experience gaming. For the sake of length on an already lengthy video, I've chosen to quickly gloss over the sounds of a handful of series rather than the individual games one by one, mainly because I tend to rant, but also because I am passionate about the topic to make videos on each part respectively. Nevertheless, the first series that wholeheartedly defines how deep and critical an asset like a series' soundtrack is would be The Legend of Zelda. Hold on just a second, give me a moment. Man, doesn't it just hit every single time? The music of every single game, from the shrill NES chiptunes of the debut title, all the way to the distant and disconnected ambience of its most recent installment, hit the nail on the head of musical excellence. There is not many examples in gaming where motifs like Zelda's Lullaby or The Great Fairy Fountain or even the main theme itself have been reintroduced time after time again, never without it feeling forced or unnatural. And while my favorite outing is Wind Waker, Breath of the Wild uses music as its greatest asset to make a barely recognizable world feel like a place you've known for decades. Next is Sonic. And in a series full of turbulence and inconsistencies, one of the only controls in the franchise is how amazing the soundtracks have been spanning the entirety of this 30-year run. One day, I could envelop myself in the rich and iconic 16-bit tunes of the Genesis era. The next, I can jump into the Crush 40 years and tap into the rock fan I didn't know I had in me. The day following, I could vibe to the whimsical instrumentals that graced games like Unleashed, Lost World, Colors, or even 06, a la Wave Ocean or Windmill Isle. Quick side note, I will die on the hill that the international version of Sonic CD OST is one of the greatest works ever. Pokemon pushed the limits on handheld consoles, not in gameplay, but in its music. The iconic themes of the first generation have carried over countless times, with every revisited rendition expanding upon the imagination that the Game Boy tracks had to invoke to compromise for the lack in visuals. The pieces of Ruby and Sapphire in particular bring the fondest memories out of me, so when the installment returned in 2013, let me just say that the best compositions that have ever touched my ears came to light. I mentioned the Donkey Kong Country series earlier, and the work of David Wise was revolutionary in its way. Well-known songs like Aquatic Ambience, Jungle Japes, and Gangplank Galleon are some of the best examples of how much of a master Wise was at building a lively surrounding through sound. However, my favorite work of his in particular would have to be Forest Interlude. Switching up from there, I have to address a couple of fighting games. The first is Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which is actually my favorite fighter of all time. Most are familiar with the character select screen for obvious reasons. But the game's actual soundtrack aside from that has the perfect balance of arcade charm and pumped up energy to make a game surrounding the theme of whimsical video game characters taking on jarring comic book properties feel extremely cohesive. On the flip side is Smash Bros. The franchise itself is a smorgasbord of music that introduced me to an endless amount of great games and songs. But the themes of every Smash title, from 64 to Ultimate, always encapsulate the magnitude of each crossover. As I grew up, Brawl was one of the first games that fully captured my attention. And good lord, the theme on that game is unworldly. One of the newer games that have grabbed my attention through its music was Splatoon. In 2015, it was a game I anticipated highly, but I've grown much fond of the artistic direction the series takes in every aspect. Often in multiplayer shooters, the accompanying music is very much of an afterthought for me. Yet the up-tempo, distinctly warped and vibrant music of Splatoon is not only unignorable, but a fluent component in the game's overall enjoyment. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the eternally iconic tunes of the Mario franchise, a series that always stays on the safe side, its best outings shown through Super Mario 3D World and some of the most triumphant and grandiose pieces you'll hear. Mario Kart has its own plethora of classics like Rainbow Road and Coconut Mall that embodies both the wonder and the frenzy that the kart series holds. But if you look deep enough in the series, you'll find the Mario Strikers Charge soundtrack, and I'll let that one explain for itself. All in all, the main purpose of this video was to take some time out and address a lot of the feelings I built up over the years surrounding video game music. It is honestly one of the most fascinating and unsung genres of music or art in general that deserves much more discussion and much more praise. And even aside from that, I hope that reflecting on my personal experiences, along with presenting some shared instances on the wonders of video game music, have given you a different perspective on how you receive video game music going forward. Maybe the next time you play a game, just pause for a second and take in the art that lives just below. Hopefully you grasp a new appreciation that may not have been present before. I'm going to get back to studying, so I'll see you next time. If you made it to this part of the video, thank you so much for watching. And as always, take care and peace.